Pushkin.
When I first got the job at Blue Note, I went through the archives, did a little research, and there's an insanely inordinate number of musicians who come from Detroit, like not even a close second in terms of cities. What do you think it is about Detroit?
I think when the people from the South went up north, that migration, I just think that the enthusiasm of being free and the chances of being productive and being free went to where the industrial states were that had those kind of options. And Detroit has always been a manufacturing city, cars right now. Right. And Henry Ford made 89 fortunes with the assembly line in Detroit. And my general view is that the people who were of that mindset, they all came to a place where they could find their work, Now, there are a lot of people, a lot of musicians went to Philadelphia, Percy, the Heath Brothers, and Pittsburgh, Ahmed. But somehow Detroit was the biggest manufacturing city that had the most options as a non-historical guess,
Right. You chose to be a classical cellist originally, right? Was that your ambition? And you changed. What were the circumstances that caused you to change over to playing bass from cello?
The start of this story is I was going to all-black junior elementary school, and this person came into a room where they had these things from on the table, like 11, 12-year-old kids. She said she's going to start an orchestra at this school, and children, these are the instruments that we're going to play. Like, walk around and pick one that you think appeals to you. That's the best sound you can get out of it, wherever it sounds like, and we'll make some music together. Right. And somehow the cello caught my attention. It was aluminum, And so as I got better, the teachers recognized that I was a little past their teaching level. Ultimately, I was considered a really giant talent for African-American 14-year-old. Mm-hmm. And so one day I looked around. My dad said, "Son, if you want to be in this game, you got to be better than everybody else who's in the game." Okay. Having said that, I thought that I was upholding that general family motto, So I looked around one day and the bass player was graduating. I'm a senior in high school. A senior, that would be 1953, 54 spring. And I was always good at math. My father was a genius, but I could subtract pretty good. So I'm looking around and say, if he's only one guy there and they need a bass player not as a zero, I'm going to be that guy. So I convinced my parents that this was a good way for me to get better, and get the work I was looking for, get the exposure, get the experience, because I was the only guy playing this, So I sold my cello, and I borrowed the money for a bass and got some lessons, And the Eastman was having auditions throughout the country, Eastman School of Music. So I got some books, got a teacher, and figured out what the library was, and I auditioned, and I got a full scholarship for 4 years. I'm not a bass player at Eastman, And while I knew of jazz, because we all knew about the jazz and blues and stuff like that, I never gave it a thought to being a player in that level. I was going to be a cello solo, man. Mm. Now I was going to be an orchestral bass player. I was okay with that because I got the same notes, basically, different attitude, but I could do that, And as I got better at Eastman, because it was a very competitive environment, there were like 6 or 7 African Americans and a student body of maybe 600 or 700 kids, and about 10 bass players, bass player students, And again, Oscar Zimmerman was the teacher, and he was commenting on how I was improving and how I was really understanding the music around me, how to play in an orchestra, just those kind of details that good teachers show students who they think are capable of handling another level of performance. You know? So I'm getting better. I'm still working on my father's mental. You want to play the game, you got to have the best hand, so to speak. So I'm getting orchestra. I'm getting all these gigs. I go home for the summer because I have no money to stay in town. School is over. The dormitory is closing. So I get in my car and drive back to Detroit. And my neighbor, who was a saxophone player, said, "Hey, Ron, I'm putting together a little band to play for the Wayne State University parties, sororities, fraternities. But we need a bass player. Can you do that?" I said, "Well, I don't really know the library. I understand that's different music, but if you can give me some records or something to listen to in the library, I'll see how much I can learn in the time I'm going to be home for this 3 months off of school." At the time, Dave Brubeck was really hot. The Jazz Goes to College, that record, so I said, "Well, learn some of these songs because I'm starting to sing like Chet Baker." I said, "Chet Baker? Yeah, he's a singer." "Oh, okay, whatever." I know the piano player loved Bud Powell. And back in the day, there was jazz on TV in Detroit. And that they should have this show from Rouge Lounge, which is about an hour drive outside Detroit, northeast. And the host was Soupy Sales, a comedian.
Yeah.
And one day he had on this show the Max Roach Quartet with Max, George Morrow, I think maybe Bud was on that band, and maybe Harold Land. I can't remember, it's so far back. But they had the 20 minutes of songs with Bud Powell and Max. He said, "Ron, this is it." I said, "Okay." I'm still playing Bach and Beethoven and Brahms because that's what I'm aiming for. But okay, for the summer. Yeah. The scholarship didn't cover all my expenses, and I needed to have some money so I could go back to school because my parents weren't able to take care of the remaining kids. There were like 5 left at home when I left for college. So I'm responsible, helping them to cover stuff. So, okay, I can do that. So as I'm getting better, I get back to Rochester for my sophomore year. And there's a local club. Local clubs have music, black clubs, Turned into all-night sessions till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got 8 o'clock theory class, man. Come on. Mr. Carter, hello. I'm into that kind of zone, But I need the money, so I try to figure it out. I got some books, I got the library. I was able to do the jam sessions at the night from midnight to 3 in the morning, But I got better at it, But I'm still in the orchestra. I'm still trying to get this orchestral accomplishment that I'm aiming to do. Right. Jazz was something that helped me stay in school. By strings for the instrument, stuff, details, Yeah. I know it's the bulletin board. They have jobs for orchestras, auditions, stuff like that, And while I saw that, I was still not seeing it. In that those auditions were kind of general, but I wasn't feeling any school encouragement to check that out, and it didn't stop me in my tracks as to why weren't they encouraging me to check it out. Mm-hmm. I just said, "Look, I'm trying to get a degree here, but I've got a minor and I got a major in this. I got these classes. I'm in a very competitive environment. All these kids think they're the best there is, and they work into that end. They got practice time. I mean, just other factors in my life, I hadn't really learned how to socialize with white people because I'm an all-black community. I'm growing up in that environment, I had a scholarship, but that meant I had to work in the kitchen to wash dishes during the meals, So I met some nice guys who were in the same general boat who had a lot more money, but they were real nice guys. So to this day, I still contact those guys because they're still my friends, So I was learning how to socialize with a non-complete black environment. Mm-hmm. So I was growing up too at the same time. A footnote to this story, Don, is that Eastman School of Music was separate from the University of Rochester physically. It was like a 4-mile distance in campuses, you know. And so when the freshmen met at Eastman, the guys from the River campus, they called it, came to the school to socialize, you know. And a couple of guys thought that all musicians were, at the time the word was fruits. You know, it's not a very nice word, you know. And I was from Detroit, and with that hard head and, you know, badass on my jacket, that kind of stuff, you know. I said, so I just met a couple of acquaintances. I said, man, those guys can't talk to us like that. I mean, I'm not sure, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not buying that kind of description of me, you know. I said, well, gee, what do you want to do? I said, well, I was a pretty decent basketball player. I'm going to try to make the team. I said, man, but you got to practice. Yeah, I know that. I know that very well. Well, let's see what happens. So the two of us got our nerve together, you know, rode bicycles 2.5 miles out to the campus, all that kind of stuff. And we had a couple of practices, and the guy cut the squad down to whatever, 12 people. And I made the squad. So I was on a freshman squad basketball team.
Wow.
I got maybe about 3 games, about 2 points, but it was okay. The point was that I made the squad, you know. But it seemed clear to me that I couldn't do both, and I couldn't be a good basketball player. And my goal to be was to be a good player. I couldn't do both. So I acknowledged that. I told those guys, okay, this is one guy who did that, you know. In the meantime, I'm noticing the bulletin board mentions about the auditions for the violin section. They did a third violin player, or they did assistant concert master, they did a bass player somewhere. So I'm noticing these things, you know, and I'm not feeling any encouragement. And I'm not feeling any overt encouragement. The one said, hey, man, check this out. Try it on this and see how that feels. I didn't get that. I wasn't feeling that. You know? In any event, one of the processes at the time, Don, was that every orchestral season with the Rochester Philharmonic, they would need some spaces filled, so they called students from the school who could cover the library, who deserved the right, who earned the right to be a part of the Rochester Philharmonic as they were juniors or sophomores or seniors in college, you know. And so it turned out in 1958 they needed a bass player for the Philharmonic Orchestra for the 58-59 season, you know. And so Oscar said, you should be the guy to do that. I said, okay. You know? So whatever the process was, I got a call next day, said that they had an opening in the Philharmonic and they want me to fill the chair. I said, okay, this is what it takes, huh? Okay, sign me up. Okay, so for a year I was probably the first person of color to play in the Philharmonic Orchestra, you know. I'm still making gigs on the weekends now. And one weekend there was Horace Silver's band, a place called Squeezer's Bandbox. And Horace had Teddy Kotick, maybe Clifford Jordan, Art Farmer. He had a really good band, man.
Still back in Detroit?
No, in Rochester.
In Rochester.
Yeah. Had a really good band. So ultimately I joined the house band, the place called the Ridgecrest Inn, just outside New York, and they brought in acts. And I was part of the intermission band. Me, drummer named Don Manning, and pianist named Joe Close, who ultimately left town and went to Seattle to join Ernestine Anderson, a really good piano player. In any event, I'm seeing all these guys come in weekends with Officer Dizzy's band. I met Ike Isaacs, who was with Carmen McCree at the time. You know, Sam Jones came through, you know. Sonny Stitt came by himself as a single. And so he played with the house band. So I met me, Joe, and Don. And the first time he tried us out was D-flat blues right here. I said, well, okay, I can do that. Messing up with the blues and D-flat, man. I mean, really? Come on, that's the test? You know? And so it was a nice experience to me to see how this guy, who was as close to a bird as you can get without being a bird, played every night that level. I mean, it was just amazing, you know. Slim Gaylord, you may not know his name, but he's one of the early duos, Slim and Slam.
Yeah. Oh,
And he came in as a single, and we talked about music and changes and chords. They were really making this music concept more available to me firsthand. So anyway, I'm in the Philharmonic Orchestra. We have concerts, and I got a white bow tie and matching vest, and they had guest conductors, Pierre Montreux, Leopold Stokowski. All these people came in, 4 or 5 of them. And so one day I'm at the rehearsal with Leopold Stokowski, who was about 5'6", now 6'2", 6'3", something like that, And he said, "Why don't you have a seat?" I guess him look at me eye to eye because I was, He says, "Young man, I have noticed your performance here, and you seem like a really good person and a marvelous player, and I'd like you to go to my orchestra down in Texas. But the board of directors right now are not ready to hire colored people." I said, "Okay." That's the first honest answer I got to describe the classical world at that time. I said, "Okay," and right then I knew that I had to find another avenue to play music.
Yeah.
And along this time, the bass players would say that I had some skills, and they thought that I'd do good in New York. They didn't know my classical interest. That wasn't their thing. I just a bass player who was in the halftime and in the mission band. They said New York needs a good bass player, and you should come in and try your luck. In the meantime, I met a couple of guys called the Mangionis, Gap and Chuck, and their family. The Mangionis, Frank and Nancy, hosted any musician who came to town who played jazz. They hosted them for lunch or dinner. It's clearly amazing. So I met Dizzy, I met all those guys at their home for dinner. And Chuck and Gap had a band, and the tenth player named Benny Salzan had a band called the Little Giants. And Orrin Keaton just heard about them and they made a record with Riverside. So my first record back then, those days. And they were clearly encouraging me, not necessarily not to play classical, but to acknowledge where my talent also lay.
Mm-hmm.
They provided me many a meal because I had no money. The kid didn't pay much, but he did keep me in school. I just got married in 1958. I was not scuffling, but they made it easy to not worry about where my next meal was coming from. Frank and Nancy were a lovely couple, man. Of course, Chuck got famous. Gap's his local piano player who worked all the time. They're really great people. To this day, I'm in touch with Gap and Charlie now.
Yeah.
In any event, ultimately, jazz shows came to Rochester at the Eastman Theater. And they had the jazz package shows. And they were all jazz acts. This particular show had Maynard Ferguson's band, had Lambert Hendricks and Ross's band, Dave Brubeck's group, and Miles, all in the same show, man. And me and Chuck and Charlie went to the concert. I said, let's see what this looks like, okay. So it turned out someone was supposed to take the band to the train station because that was part of the trunk line from Canada, upstate New York, yada, yada, to New York City. And they all made a stop at this Rochester because there's a big school, Rochester, RIT, big, it was Eastman Kodak. It's all there. Bausch and Lomb, it's all there. So a good financial stop to make on the way back to New York from Canada, And anyone, so who was supposed to take these guys to the train station never showed up. And so the guy asked me could I take him to the train station, Miles' band to the train station. I said, I got to afford it, man. These guys, they didn't know the level of transportation. So no, they ride with you. So I took Miles and Red Garland to the train station in my car,
Wow.
But it just ride. We went, they were famous. I'm a bass player in school, but the Philharmonic.
Had you listened to them yet?
Not really. I mean, I knew who they were, but the name, everybody knew who they were, But I was just impressed that they trusted my driving skills. Yeah. Got a 1950 Ford, man. Come on, So we said, hello, how are you, Mr. Davis and Mr. Garland, I'm the guy who took you to the train station. Said, okay, yes, good, all right. Okay. That's it. So I graduated. So in the meantime, Chico Hamilton had a band. And he told me, someone said, hey, Ronell, you play cello? Yes, I do, Mr. Hamilton said, play something. So I brought a cello and sat in the practice room, played a couple of things with a box that I knew, still had some skills, you know. He said, we're working in New York on this day, August, wherever it is. And if you get to New York, when you graduate, come to New York. And if I'm working, I think my cello player is about to leave the band. And I need a policeman. Are you interested? I said, well, I'm interested. I'm not sure how many skills I have left because I haven't played in a long time, but I think I can handle it, you know. He said, well, come to New York. And how are you? I said, okay. So I graduated June of 1959 and went to New York August of the same year, and the band was working at Birdland. So I walked downstairs, you know. Hi, Mr. Hamilton. I'm here. You know. He said, well, change the plans. I said, oh, yeah, what? He said, well, cello players are going to stay, but I need a bass player. Wyatt Ruther decided to go back to Seattle and set up shop in Seattle. Are you doing to take this gig? I said, sure, I'm here now. I've made a commitment to stay here. You know? Who's in the band? Dennis Buttermere was playing guitar. Nat Gershon was a cello player. And Eric Dolphy was a reed player. I said, okay. And he said, we're leaving, and wherever it is, we got to concert on the road. And we come back, we go to California for a while. I said, well, you know, I'm still going to school. He said, well, why don't you try to delay the school until January and enroll? And I said, I don't know. I have to talk to them because I got a scholarship for a master's program for the year, you know. And I'm not, if I think I'd cancel it, I'll be in. Well, talk with him, you know. So I talked to the school and said, look, I got this chance to go on the road with Chico Hamilton, you know. Can I start my scholarship in January of 1960 rather than the fall of
59?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I said, okay, you know. So I left town with Chico Hamilton for like 4 weeks. All these stops on. We drove from Boston to Los Angeles. Drove.
How was that drive?
We had 4 drivers, Chico, me, Tommy, his brother drove. So it was fun, you know. I'm just a guy from Detroit with a family of 6 girls and a boy and my brother. This is all new to me, man, you know. One of the stops, by the way, was in Washington, D.C., the first stop in Washington. And it was really north of New York, but because it was really down south for me, you know. And we pulled up to Howard Johnson's, if you know that name from back in the day. And we were out in the bus of the shows, and the shows traveling by bus. You know, they had Coleman Hawkins, had Mauser's band. It's just a great bunch of people to watch them operate, watch them talk, watch how they communicated with each other with all their genius skills, you know. So we're in there waiting in the bus for a while, and we're still waiting, and the guy comes back and says, well, you know, they don't serve black people here, so we have to go around the back and find somewhere else to eat, you know.
At Howard Johnson's?
Yeah. I said, oh, wow. This is it, huh? You got this bus full of geniuses, and they don't want to serve them because they're not white. I didn't get that, you know. I'm 20, maybe 19 now, you know. From Detroit, met the riots and all that stuff. So the idea of that kind of competition is not new to me, but to be so close to it and to see the people who they don't want to serve a sandwich to, man, this talent, how could that be, man? What's wrong with this fucking picture? How could that take place? You know? Yeah. Hello, world next door. come this way, that, you know? In any event, I got over that and I understood, okay. So one of these things I do, guys, is when I do these interviews, they always want to know about my classical background. I said, okay, you know, and how I feel about it, you know, and do I have any regrets and do I miss it? All those questions, I give a small yes, I do miss it. I made some wonderful friends, man. I grew up with some great people who were trying to play better like I was, you know. I miss the sound of the orchestra. It's one thing to listen to a record. It's another thing to be sitting right in the middle of the sound. It's an incredible feeling, man. I miss that, you know. But they weren't not. But tell you what you do, Mr. Interviewer. This is 1962, 63, 64, whatever it was. Just take some pictures of the orchestras. Go back 10 years. Now, all orchestras had a photograph of the orchestra for the promo. You know? Chicago, Philly, Cleveland, New York, Boston. And you let me know how many minorities are in those orchestras compared to the orchestras on the stage now, whatever year that would have been. And you think that's okay? You think that hasn't made an impression on me still? And I said, no, these schools, and it's not a propaganda conversation now. This is page 3. You know? These schools are still turning out wonderful African-American musician players to be primarily symphony players, orchestra players. And if you look at the number of photographs of these orchestras at 5-year intervals, and the same 5-year intervals that these schools are turning out these wonderful classical players, orchestral players to be, what happens to them? According to these pictures, they're not working with Cleveland or Philadelphia or New York or Boston or Los Angeles. Where are these kids? What happened to them? The reason my picture is not in these pictures, they told me not long ago that they weren't ready to hire colored people. That's why I'm not playing there. According to these pictures I'm looking at, if I get my Sherlock Holmes glasses on, that kind of stuff, nothing's changed other than the date of the calendar, man, you know? So there's a lot of work, there's a lot of work to be done. And my footnote to this kind of conversation, it always kind of ends up there because they think I just know about Miles. And my life started in 1963 to 68 and a half. No, I as I say, I'm experienced. I'm living that life, you know. And one of the things that keeps this fire blue, you know, in the acetylene torch, the hottest fire is not the flame, it's this blue thing. You know. One of the kind of things that keeps my fire, that color. You know. Our situations like when I was doing commercial work in New York, and the orchestra's doing stuff, big scores in New York, you know. There has a section, a bass section of anywhere from 4 to 5 players. And I was known as the hot jazz player in town, so they wanted to know what I'm doing there. You know? So the game was, guys, that everyone who was not specifically assigned their first chair, they got there earlier so they could be the first chair. That meant you got the best money, highest pay, you got a little more respect from the orchestra because you're the first chair, violinist or bass player, whatever it was. You got a chance to make the bowing, the fingering, that was all on you, and the remaining 4 or 5 people in the section, their job was to say, yes, 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 you know. And because I was either number 4 or 5 on the list of important players, you know, I didn't feel that they thought I belonged there, because I just finished playing a set with Miles Davis last night, or Randy Weston, or Herbie Mann, whoever the gig was for that week, you know. So one day I had enough. So the sessions were like 9 to 1 and 2 to 5. And you come back and you do the lunch, you know. I said, okay, guys, I got this. I'm telling me, you know. So we took a break at 1 o'clock, you know, and I know that about 12:30, 1 o'clock, they're going to start filtering and get for the next half. You know, I'll get there before these bass players get there. Now, while I hadn't been in an orchestra seriously for like 3 or 4 years, I never forgot the library. Mm-hmm. And I knew all the things that bass players had to audition to be accepted. I knew that stuff, man. I just didn't put it in the trash can. It's just still part of my DNA, you know. So what I decided to do was just give them a lesson of what my capacity was and my experience. So I just sat in the last chair, because that was my seat at the film, you know. Okay. And I played 3 or 4 of the orchestral excerpts through the keys. And I just let it, that was my statement. And somebody said, hey, where you going? I said, I got a gig night at Berlin tonight. I can't stay here, That's the footnote to this kind of conversation. So, yes, I'm still affected by that. You can't let that go. If you let it go, it continues somewhere else and someone who can't handle it. And I hate to think, guys, of how much talent that's not available to a public of listening music because because they're part of the minority string section, string player. Again, the pictures are slowly having a little more representative of a broader musical ability of players in the minority community who deserve to be in these chairs like these other guys and gals are, gal singular, But I think this blue part of the acetylene torch, I think is necessary for me, I enjoy the memories. And I don't regret not being able to have those memories live. My view is that if they wanted to hire me and I passed the auditions, they couldn't afford me. I mean, they could not afford what I get. I'm bringing a whole nother vibe to this orchestra and what they stand for.
Yeah.
I'm more famous than the conductor. What does that cost?
How do you control the blue flame that keeps you?
That's from in here.
How do you keep that burning without burning yourself?
That's part of my DNA. That helps me keep a balance. Balance meaning there's always someone out there, some young kid, male or female, of color, who was going through what I went through 60 years ago. And if they do any homework and do any research, because it's now so available to them, they'll see that here's some person who went through this kind of experience that I'm going through 60 years later. He found somewhere else for his talent. Now, it doesn't mean that they can be a good jazz player. I mean, they may turn out to be a better writer or put their skills into being a composer or a better teacher. It just lets them know that there's still a way to be involved in a community of some kind, even though it's not the one that you initially chose, and someone else made that choice kind of for you.
Yeah.
They threw you into another train track. That's okay.
Did it feel like did jazz playing the gigging you were doing, and eventually, did that ever feel like a consolation early on? No.
It felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. No, I never took it as a great second choice. I'm saying those guys missed it.
Yeah.
You felt a natural affinity for it.
Certain parts, yes, but I understood to do what I was doing, they required another kind of level of work and commitment. Yeah. It's one thing to understand what the right note could be. It's another thing to have the patience to keep looking for it.
Did you listen to other styles of music, like when you were a kid? Did you listen to CKLW and? Probably, but at the time, church was still very important in my family's, in my community's life. So I knew all the church songs, all the words. At the time, my conversation didn't involve the word changes, but I understood the harmony. It was kind of complicated. Yeah. And I never went to the rehearsals because I was playing the show and stuff doing. So that kind of music was always in my family and my community. No one said jazz is the devil's music in my house, or when they would take the little kids to the Symphony Hall Fisher Theater in Detroit to see the orchestra, they encouraged us. This is what orchestras sound like. They weren't saying that you can't be in there, but at the time we were 12 or 14, you don't see anybody who looks like you. And they aren't planting that seed, they're just showing you an orchestra.
And where you take it from there, that's kind of up to you, your background, your interest, your determination, your skill level, wherever it is. If you want to go through all this, whatever. But no, I don't think that my career now is that. I never thought it as a consolation prize.
Yeah.
I think of how much those guys missed it.
Yeah. Well, when you go back to Detroit over the years, I mean, as your career started, as you're going back late 50s, early 60s, through the 60s, and you're seeing like Motown, for instance, happening in Detroit. Was that, I mean, were you watching that at all and interested?
Not at all.
Not at all.
At Detroit, I wasn't a jazz player. And so when I would go back for summer vacations, I would never go to the jazz clubs. I had a job. One summer I spent as a park recreation director. My job was to go to the parks at a park at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, take out all the gear, the baseball bat, the tub, the gloves, all that stuff, and monitor the kids' behavior from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. When the time came up, put stuff away and do it again tomorrow. So I kept my health together, I kept my physical skill together. I was older than most of the kids, so that was really the old man who's controlling the badminton set. Or the guy who made us pick up the bases after the softball game. I was okay with that because that's what I was.
Yeah.
I just want to be better than they were at it.
Did you bump into James Jamerson at all?
None of those guys, man. I didn't know any of those people. No.
What about the people you went to high school with, like Alice Coltrane or
I didn't know her.
Donald Byrd?
Ira Jackson, saxophone player, stopped playing after a while. Yeah. Kirk Lightsey was my classmate.
Yeah.
He used to do his homework doing homework.
Wow.
My classmates at Cass, they were all classical players, like I was. And some of them went on to major orchestras and conductors of major orchestras. A couple of them went to, were in the Washington, in the D.C. Symphony, a couple of them were in the major orchestras scattered throughout the world. I was the only one of my class who went to jazz to this level, whatever level that is. But I kind of lost track of those guys. None of them did this for a living.
Yeah. And you didn't know Paul Chambers?
My father knew his father because they were both bus drivers.
Yeah.
And I did meet Paul in New York officially, but we never hung out because I had a family. He had a family. He was traveling miles all the time.
Yeah.
I came to New York. I was still a student in Manhattan for a master's.
Yeah.
I did do gigs, but I was not where he was in the spectrum of the jazz community, Having met Sam Jones in Rochester, I came to New York, and at some point, a year or so later, Sam was working at Monk. And at some point, he got sick, and he called me, could I make this gig for him? I said, with Monk? He said, yeah, you can do that. So I said, okay. So I got my bass in the cab, and went in the subway, and went down to a place called Circle in the Square, which is a block from the Village Gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice small theater. And I met Mr. Monk, and Mr. Monk, Sam Jones is sick, and he called me to sub for him. He said, okay, do you know my songs? I said, most of them. He said, well, tonight we'll find out which ones you don't know. And he was okay, so we did next week in Philadelphia for a week. So we get in Barron's car at 5:30, drive to the Peps, the show place in Philadelphia, do 2 sets, get in her car and drive back to New York, because I had a class in Manhattan at 8 o'clock in the morning. Did that for a week.
Wow.
For the show on Saturday. Yeah.
Another a bass player that you seemed to have a interesting relationship with early on was George DeVivier.
Yes. I saw George working with Chico Hamilton, and I didn't know the drummer, but the singer was Lena Horne.
Wow.
And George had yellow tinted sunglasses. Not only did he play it great, he looked different. And ultimately, we became really good friends. I mean, really close friends. When he got sick, I was by his side, He had a club called the Bass Fiddle up on St. Nicholas and about 134th Street. And I would go by after the gigs to talk with him, talk about music, and he had a jukebox They had all the jazz records on it. He would play one. He said, "Oh, young fella, how do you do that?" I said, "Mr." He said, No, George. George, I just hear what I do and try to find out how to make it work tomorrow night. He just loved that kind of stuff. I was with him on his bad days, his health days, and one of his last earthly beings was Mona Hinton and Milt were very great friends of his. And somehow he had gotten really sick at his home uptown, and he couldn't get a cab, couldn't get anybody to come pick him up and take him to the hospital. So Mona called me at home, said, "Can you come to where we are uptown at George's house, the apartment where he was, and take George to the hospital because we can't get a cab?" Just absolutely. So I got my son in the car, put the back seat down, my little Volvo. We drove uptown to George's house. Ultimately, they found a cab driver who would take him to the hospital, and he didn't survive much past that time, But yeah, he was a person whose imagery of the bass was really, really impactful. This is what the bass can do in a group. And we didn't have a social connection in terms of going by his house for dinner or come to my house. No, it was always connected to the bass, how the bass does in a group. The white groups that called him, they needed him there because he was the best at what there was. He had what they needed. That was a very important thing to see take place, given being told that the orchestra is not ready to hire colored people yet.
Yeah.
And I'm in New York, man, with all these great players come to New York. I see this guy playing the same bass I'm kind of playing, and he gets these gigs because the white guys know that they need him in the orchestra, in their group. It's quite a, that kind of thing. Wow.
White jazz groups? Jazz combos? Or?
Yeah, but the white guys were band leaders, Benny Goodman kind of cats, that spectrum of the music scene, the big-time guys.
Yeah.
They called George, they called Milt, because they knew they would bring something to their band that nobody else could give them.
Yeah.
So,
Left an impression.
I got that.
But for listeners who don't really know, when you talk about the role of the bass in a band, I don't know that people really understand everything that a bass can do besides just hold down low end or something like that.
Well, I kind of don't mind that. I mean, I go to concerts occasionally, classical concerts, and I've gone as often as I can, and I don't see the audience specifically wondering what kind of bass does the bass player have, and what kind of strings is he using, and what kind of fingering does he have? I don't see them doing that, Only the jazz audience is forced to be that kind of research person for this person. You need to know what I do. Just can you like the results of it? That's all I'm concerned with. Having said that, though, you can't just accept that as being the way it is. Yeah. And I try to respond to them in an adult fashion, not sandbox styles. I try to explain to them that I'll tell you what you do. You person, watch the next football game you do. There's a guy who's clearly the quarterback. What he's doing, in his ear, he's got earpiece. There's someone upstairs in the thing, and the coach are telling him what play to call. And he's doing has it on his sleeve. He has the details here, some kind of way, and he's calling the shots. Whatever he does, everybody must buy that because he just got the word from heaven, or that this is what it is. Okay. You got a quintet on the stage. The band leader calls the tune, and there's no one doing like this. But this guy in his head. Imagine that. I try to have them see that kind of angle.
You have all the power.
Indeed. And they understand that. The remaining four guys, by and large, understand that. Some of them don't. That's okay.
What happens when you start going in a certain direction and you feel the other players they either don't want to go there?
They don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I accept that. Maybe they want me to play two beat all night. I do it. Footnote to this answer. I was doing a date with a singer at some point, and the process was they would have an arranger come in from California, make some sketches for the arrangement, and the singer would come in and rhythm section they'd make this track with him singing, and the arranger would take this tracks back out to California and fill it in with orchestra, the stuff, you know. Well, I was doing this specific date, and the rhythm section I was with was a bunch of good guys in New York. That's always the case. And we communally had decided that these changes were kind of stiff, and we didn't want to do that for 6 hours. You know, our job was kind of make them hip for us, because we got to play this stuff, you know. We do 4 or 5 tunes, and the date is like 2 days, for Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday, you know. So the second day we come in, and the arranger calls me over. He said, hey, why don't you have a seat? And I said, I'm feeling pretty good, you know. No one's talking. Okay. He said, you know, I like the way you play, that's why you're here. You know? But I like my bass lines that I wrote. I said, well, so I'm going to do the songs again. I said, I'll tell you what. I'll play your shit until you can't stand it. And then you tell me I'm free. So we did 2 or 3 songs. He said, free. And we became dear friends. I mean, really dear friends. Yeah, to this day. Yeah.
Who's that?
I'm not going to tell you. But my point was I play what they want. And I have to trust that their judgment that maybe I have a better idea to do it than they have.
What about the times you're not so sure? I read or heard or read somewhere, I can't remember now where I saw this or read it, where you said the first time you played with Herbie, that he was playing chords, you weren't quite sure what they were, and so then you weren't quite sure what you should be doing exactly, just early on.
I'm not sure that's quite an exact translation. I think what I might have trying to convey to the questionnaire was I knew what he was doing, but I couldn't figure out the best note to make that work. And I didn't understand that he trusted me that much that he would go it my way, because he didn't know where I was going, other than it wasn't what his way was. Mm-hmm. And at some point, without discussion or rehearsal, it was decided that my way wasn't a bad way, and it could work for everybody.
So there was some conversation and dialogue about
in general, but not what people would think. You know, we didn't sit down with a blackboard and listen to alternate takes and figure out we had a life.
Yeah.
When the gig was over, man, Herbie just got married. He got a big record. Tony was living upstairs, somewhere at Miles' house. I had this new family. I was going home out doing other stuff other than Miles' band. There wasn't that kind of necessary additional time to feel that the band could do something that's really great, something really nice. Ultimately, it was a little past nice, but we didn't understand. I didn't understand the ramifications of what we were doing as we speak.
Yeah.
You know, but again, our relationship was based on being wowed by 4 other guys, night in and night out.
Yeah. There was a compilation of put out kind of recently, a handful of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, called like Bootleg 5. It was a Miles Davis re-release, and it has a bunch of as a bunch of recordings of you guys talking in between.
In the studio.
Yeah, in the studio.
The Freedom Jazz Dance one.
The Freedom Jazz Dance, Bootleg number 5.
Yeah.
And it's you can tell listening to it that you guys weren't 100% aware of what you were contributing to the world of music, because it was all very casual, you know?
Well, I think what I hope the people would understand from that particular set of records, discs, is that while Miles was the band leader, he was not leading the band. He took information from everybody. He said, what about this? Or don't do that, try that. He was open to any suggestions we thought that would make not just the music different, but absolve him from the responsibility of making everything happen. You know, not that he couldn't, not that he didn't, but with this select bunch of 4 other guys, they relieved him of that sole responsibility of being not just the band leader, but leading the band.
It's like a good basketball
The
team.
band was leading him, and he understood that all you got to do, man, is be able to hit a set shot. You stand over there; it's coming your way.
And Tio too. Hearing it seemed like Tio Macero who would produce it. Like you know, he was involved quite a bit too.
He was kind of controlling some of the stuff, and the budget. He knew how much time they had. He wanted to make sure that everyone got back on time from going out to get a drink or going out to get lunch. He was kind of the guy with the card that goes into the time machine. What do you call that thing? Punch the card.
Punch the clock,
Yeah. And he was the guy who organized the dates, booked the studio time, was there for the mixing. He did all that kind of stuff. He's a good composer. You know, I think we played good saxophone at one time, and I was on one of his projects. I had fun.
Yeah.
Seeing how he was the leader for a change, because he wasn't a leader with Miles's band. He was the guy who was part of the process. Now he's the guy who was dictating the tune, the tempo, the key, all that stuff. It's interesting to see him no longer be the guy hiding behind the curtain of the glass. Now he's on the other side, you know, and he understood a whole nother level of what it takes to make that happen. I appreciated that.
Yeah. ESP was produced by Irving Townsend, right?
Yeah.
What did Miles have a falling out with?
I have no idea. Yeah. I never knew those details, and actually, I didn't really care to know them, you know. And only not that it isn't that I didn't care. I was more concerned with, I think, guys, can the band hear where I'm going sooner?
Mm-hmm.
And then can I remember a nice thing I did on the first set to do it for the third set tomorrow night and see how many guys pick up on it.
Yeah.
And to that end, I have a book come out of a publishing company called Chartography. And this book is written at scores. What we have done is transcribe 5 different performances of the same song with the same band. Wow. It's a perfect laboratory.
So cool.
And it transcribes my basic line for 2.5 courses, how it changes for these 5 performances, but how the band adjusts to what I'm playing. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did live every night, man.
Because it's not just a static bass line.
No.
It's
every night is something new based on this process, based on this germ. Yeah. And every night we water it. Yeah.
How do you clear your mind so that you're not repeating what you did the night before, but moving it forward? I'll tell you, something happened to me recently. I played a gig in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and it was good to see all these people I went to elementary school with came, and they were all there before the show.
Yeah.
And then we went out to play, and I realized I'm completely unprepared to play this show. And it took me 15 minutes to get in a proper headspace to just be inventive and to let go. I'm curious about the balance of again, like following that seed you're talking about planting, but also being spontaneous.
One of the things I try to do, Don, is kind of have a line between them and me and just me. You know, we've had times, stuff's going on right now. It's difficult to turn off the news.
Yeah.
And go to work because the news is so emotion consuming, man. Yeah. You know, and I say that because I feel like I'm getting like this right now, just thinking about the difficult times we're in. And I know I got to go play a trio next week with Emmett Cohen. I got to put these feelings aside long enough to do what Emmett hopes I can do for the band. Yeah. And my devices, guys, it changes from how swept up I allow me to get in this over here. You know, there have been times when this part has been so emotional for me that it bleeds over into the first set of who I'm working with. Mm-hmm. Most of the groups I work with can understand that issue because they have it also. You know, and they would like to think that the band over here they're strong enough in their personal beliefs or their thing to kind of let this not be so important to their performance here, but still color it because it's part of the emotional life they're living. You know, I did a record called When Skies Are Gray. It's kind of my first Latin jazz record that did really well. It's a nice record. Harvey Mason, Steve Kroon, and Stephen Scott on a Monday. The Sunday before, I had done a memorial for my late wife. And these guys understood where I was coming from. And to say they had my back is kind of crude. And it wasn't that they had my back. They just had my sensitivity level tuned up so high that they trusted my choice. If they would want to argue, they'd say, now's not the right time. You know, we got to trust this guy because he's hearing some stuff over here. They help me maintain a separation of this event and this performance. Now, your friends out there, they don't understand how they have impacted your choices over here. Only you understand that. You, plural, have to understand that they don't know the difference. They don't know you have choices. They just know you're there. They will accept, by and large, what you give them because they expect you to give them a good menu. Your job is to pick the menu and what things you want to really serve them that you're really comfortable with, given their tastes are not sophisticated. I mean, they can give you don't give them a test that's over there. Did you hear me do this? No. You want to have them leave this gig. They heard our friend Don that I hadn't heard in a very long time. He sounded wonderful. Your job is to give them the right things from this menu. So you got to turn this off, turn this down. Long enough to be able to fulfill your responsibility to them, also these guys. It is not an easy thing to do. You know, and to know that we're confronted with these two emotions daily. It's something that we all quietly fight. We all quietly try to find a balance. Now, somehow we musicians don't really discuss this kind of process that we use because we have an image of ourselves being kind of above the fray. You know, you feel down, let's play the blues. Whatever things we're kind of given more credit than is due of being able to pull the audience about these doldrums. You know, I mean, we love the imagery of being the guy who does this. You know, and the fact that the band is doing this because they're following your lead. You know, you got to accept that responsibility and take care of it, man.
Yeah. Do you have rituals? Or do you
I try to have quiet before I go to work.
Yeah.
My tech guy didn't understand that at first. You know, we would drive, he picks me up, turn the music, I'm not turning the music off, man. You know, no. I just need to clear my head from these things that are in the way. You know, I don't listen to music before I come to work. I drive to my car, turn the music off. I'm like a sponge, man. We all are. You know, everything affects us. I try to limit those affecting events as much as I can. To it, no music in the car. Don't talk to me. Talk to me after the set. Because I'm still hearing what I'm trying to do for this next hour and a half. And make some strange looks occasionally, and then some people get offended. And I'm sorry that they feel that way. But it's much better to feel that way now than feel that way this way because I didn't do my job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you find by taking that much time to sort of before you go to work to clear your head and kind of adjust your antenna, so to speak? But does that create any anxiety as well? Like, does it? No.
I'm there because I belong there. Any anxiety I may have may be that someone touched the bass while I was not there. Someone fooled with the knobs. You know, physical things that I can't control, and I accept. You know, what cracks me up, man, is when we were at this club called Sweet Basil, 7th Avenue down in downtown. The way we were set up, the audience had to walk by the bandstand to get to the restroom. And invariably on intermission, someone would walk by, go into the bathroom, and hit the cymbals. Or do like on the piano. They had to see they had to be a part of the thing, man. Yeah. You know, and you're not a part of this. You're a part of this.
That part of the equation.
Yeah. You're the guy who draws the line. You know.
Yeah. When you mentioned like physical distractions, do you ever find you've been playing the same bass for decades, right?
60 years.
Does it feel different, like another instrument some nights?
Yes.
What is that?
Well, you know, the bass is it's a box, a wooden box that's held together, that's separated by a stick. It's called a sound post. And what that sound post do, it would do like this because of the pressure of the strings.
Yeah.
It's also affected the weather. It affects the bass's expanding contraction. A small degree, but you feel in the strings got off, so they get tighter. Yeah. You know, there's certain gigs that I don't do because the bass is laying down for an hour between sets in a window. And the window is kind of cold air. Yeah. So when I pick up the bass is literally freezing. And now that I turn the heat on, now the bass, which got this way because there's been cold air, it now goes like this. And my hands know the difference right away. So, oh man, I got to play harder because the strings are so tight now because of this. You know, my body's warm, the lights are on. All these factors change the instrument's physical response because it's going like this, ever so slightly.
Yeah.
And as they do this, the strings go higher as well. You know, they stand there, but the strings are moving just because this activity is going on. You know, and it's always, you know, always just crack me up, man. And say we go from the parking lot to the bandstand. There's no chance to get warmed up, so to speak. The bassist had been walked into 4 blocks in the rain, mm-hmm. going to the gig. You know, going to literally to the bandstand. You know, and but that's kind of the physical thing we're looking in every night. And I think that most we can do is to be aware of there's certain things we can't control. We got to be aware of that it's happening though. We can't say, I didn't know what happened. How can you not know, man? You just walk 4 blocks in the rain or snow, the bass is cold, the heat's on the bandstand. How could you not know that's going to affect this box some kind of way? I think if they understood that, they would have a little lower level of frustration, and they would play differently because they understand they got to get warmed up as the bass does physically as well.
Mm-hmm. When you play in a theater, and especially with modern sound systems, where they got subwoofers projecting out the thing, and it comes bouncing back at you, and the drums come bouncing back at you 30 milliseconds later, how do you deal with that?
Well, I try to have the band not rely so singularly on the you call those things?
The monitors.
Yeah. I want them to kind of rely on as much as they can on what they hear immediately. Mm-hmm. And if I can get them to trust the band's sound without this other stuff, mm-hmm. this delay of the beat doesn't take them so far out, so to speak. You know, when you have your own monitors, guys, I think each guy wants his loud like it's just them. Mm-hmm. Give me more horn. Practice. More piano, soft pedal. That, you know.
Yeah. Let's shift up for one second. You mentioned Teo Macero. You've worked with all the great producers, the legendary producers. You were Creed Taylor. You worked with Bob Thiel, Alfred Lyon. I'm wondering, from a Blue Note perspective, certainly what made Alfred's records different. You happen to be on the best records that I think are in our catalog, from Speak No Evil and Maiden Voyage and stuff with Bobby Hutcherson, Real McCoy, all the things you did with McCoy. The players changed, but you're on all of the best records. I think that's a strong testimony. What was it like working with Alfred as opposed to other producers?
Alfred understood just the feeling. He would say, It's got to swing. It's got to swing. He understood that emotion. He didn't know anything else but anything else. He didn't know notes. He couldn't read a note if it hit him in the head on the subway. Yeah. But he knew that this thing that didn't have the element he recognized.
Yeah.
And the band who understood how little Alfred knew about music, he understood this primal, is that a good word? This primal instinct of swing.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he said that, the band just stopped in their heads denigrating this guy and understood that he was telling them that this stuff is not happening because he can't feel it. And that's all he has to tell them. And that was important to the bands. All of those guys, man. All of them would say, Alfred, yeah. Okay. The fact is, when he said that, they understood his limitations were telling them that wherever they were, it was the wrong place for this.
Because he wasn't intrusive then.
Quite the opposite. He made sure we had lunch before. He made sure that there was the physical details and maybe rehearsal. Sometimes there was none. You know, his ability to put together the best set of guys, which is a whole different kind of skill that most producers don't have for whatever reason. You know, my favorite player, but does he sound good with this guy? Or who's going to pull this date together? Who can we trust to be the linchpin? You know, who's going to? He had that sense of combinations that a lot of producers don't happen to have for another set of reasons.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a casting director.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big skill, yeah. Which producers do you think were the best that you worked with?
There's almost too many to name because you never know who they are until it's all over.
Yeah.
And unless I hear the final product, I haven't had a chance to track down most of those things. So I don't know who did their job better than somebody else did. That's the question right now.
Yeah.
I just think that they would call me for their projects. They thought I could be a guy who could help them do something that they thought they wanted.
Yeah.
And I admire that skill. I admire their having heard enough music to make that kind of choice.
Duke Pearson was another person who was important at Blue Note and was a player, but also and made records.
He also played trumpet, man.
Great player, but also produced records too.
Yeah.
That, how was he as a?
He's a player who knew how to produce.
Okay.
Not the producer who played a little bit. That's not that different. Yeah. And he played good too, by the way. My footnote to that story is that Orrin was trying to get him to make. He wanted to make one more record. He moved down to Atlanta and all that kind of stuff. And I was working in California, and I ended up out in Berkeley, which is where the Fantasy Studio was. A nice studio, man. And the good engineer, Jim Stern. And somehow Duke was ailing, but I didn't understand that. And I think Orrin didn't understand it either. Because no one really said why he was ailing, what it was. And it didn't come out too much later. Anyway, Duke finally got to California for this recording session with me and him, you know. Because Duke had started a lot of duos in New York when he was in New York. You know, Bradley's, the Lions here, whatever they were, he kind of had them hire me and him to do a duo thing. Bradley's, Knickerbocker. Anyway, when Duke finally got out to California to make this record, I was working at night with whoever, maybe my band, but I was free during the day, so we spent 2 or 3 days all day hoping Duke would feel better enough to complete a tune or something, you know. I'm not sure what happened to our efforts, you know. Ultimately, he passed away from multiple sclerosis, we understood, but no one nailed that as the cause of him having the physical difficulties he was experiencing. And maybe I'm just repeating the rumor I heard, I'm not sure, but ultimately he couldn't finish because he was in so much discomfort. But boy, what a you know, you bring these names of the people who I knew who are no longer, I call them left the concert. You know, I look around, man, and I'm one of the last guys standing, and I just get chills thinking that I can't count on those guys to be there, wherever there is, you know. I can't count on those guys to call them up and say, happy birthday, you know. Or I can't count on those guys to say, man, will you stop that? Get out of here, come on. As I've been known to say to guys who are getting on my nerve, you know, my last nerve, as a matter of fact. I miss those guys, man. I miss those guys saying, man, how did you do that? And I can't hear that from those guys, a lot of them. So it calls me to sit back and reflect on longevity.
Do you call a lot of your old friends that are still around, Sonny Rollins or Herbie Hancock?
Yes, yeah. I just feel the spirit. Like, okay, I call those guys. You know, I called a couple of guys doing their birthday, and I just play happy birthday for them. You know, and it cracks them up that I was stopped. Of course, I was stopped my day, man. You're not that important in my life. Come on. Here it is, da 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 stuff, whatever it is, you know. NG.
Let's talk about Wayne for a second.
Yeah.
One of a kind.
Yeah.
How do you think about him? How do you think about playing with him, and what made him so unique?
When I first met Wayne, he was playing with Maynard Ferguson's band. And he was playing second tenor, I guess, I don't know. Doing occasional arrangements, you know. That was my first meeting with him. And also later on, I met his brother Alan, who played a little bit trumpet, you know, one of the avant-garde guys at the time. When I traveled with the VSOP, you know, or Miles's band, my job was to do two things. Not let Wayne buy too many books, and kind of translate what he said to the interviewer, you know. And Wayne left at both of those jobs, you know. He's going to buy his books, and he's going to say what he's going to say, you know. And he's going to also write what he could write, and that's just a great writer, man. Yeah. I think he understood, not that the guys didn't, he understood that the bass sound was important, not specifically the note choice. But of course that's part of it. Not specifically the rhythm, or not specifically maintaining the form. He thought for him, the sound of the bass was so important that they made the band work for him, if for another reason, because of that. The others were important to him. He wrote stuff off them, different kind of changes, different kind of form, different tempo. Of course they were important to him, but for him, that sound was critical to his being in the band.
And critical to his compositions?
To Wayne.
To Wayne.
Two more questions, and I'm getting emotional here, so that's kind of...
Okay. All right, well, let's talk about Ron Carter Universe, which is one of the most remarkable things I've seen
that amazing,
online.
Man?
Yeah.
You seen that too?
Yeah.
Don't ask me how they did it. all I can tell you, man, is that people came by 2 nights ago. We found add 75 more records to the universe.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just stunned. And these guys, nice guys, they're kind of like guys who you see them at a pizza shop, just being guys. But to be able to conceive of that and put that in a form that it can be added to as you discover them, it's just mind-boggling, man.
People should check it out. It's Ron Carter Universe. If you search for
roncarteruniverse.com.
Yeah.
And then the club, I spelled it for him. RON.com. Yeah, I spelled it for him, you know. Yeah, it's just stunning, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to say it'd be great if everybody could do it, but everybody can't do it because you played on so many records. No one's got that kind of repertoire or the discography. I could spend hours on it.
And the more you find, the more other combinations you find to personalities and what record this is on and the dates, and you get the 10 seconds on YouTube, but it was just...
Yeah.
Fortunately, you know, when I talk to guys, I'm standing up. Otherwise, it's so far off my head sitting down. I said, you guys be quiet.
And let's also talk about all the books you write. You're a great educator, mentor figure.
Well, you know, I think my age group has a responsibility so that the next generation doesn't realize that these people before them really impacted what they're trying to do now. You know, And I think what I've tried to do with my books, especially to the bass players, give them a head start on what it takes, what tools it takes to do what they think they hear with help from my processes and my books. Don, I've always felt that unless the bass player gets better in the band really can't cover a lot of different territory because this is the guy who does everything. And I explain to them and they get stunned. I say, this is the only guy in the band who plays every note. He plays every beat. He plays every form. He plays every groove, wherever it is. He plays every presence. And his there-ness for every beat of every song forever. Horn players play 3 courses and they sit down and go to the bar. Piano players clean their fingernails during the bass solo. Drummers are always doing this, fixing something. This is the only guy who does every note. And unless he improves, he can't help them grow. And most members don't really know how to help him. And they don't know how to tell him what he needs to make him more efficient with them. Mm-hmm. And it's not just louder, man. What about the note choice? How are you going to mark the form for us? How are you going to get us in tune? And I tell these guys that whenever Miles would leave the stage, he'd come back, put the music back in, he has 2 notes. He said, Ron, sharp or flat? I say, too high, man. Because the horn got cold and all that, deal. He check me out because he trusted my sense of, this is a pitch, man. Mm. I'm telling Russell, sharp, man, let's go, man. Because it hurts my hand. I'm trying to find out exactly what my bass wants me to play the note in the same place, night in and night out. These guys don't allow it to happen if they're playing sharp or flat, as they will. Okay, fine. Mm. So I think these are some of the bass player's responsibilities once he understands what they are. His job is to go somewhere, someone who can help him sharpen these skills that he needs to have to not just be a member of the band, but to be an integral part of the band. Mm. Not just saying, I'm in the band. Yeah. I'm in the band, yeah, right.
The QB.
Yeah. On my playlist right here, man. These are the changes. Wait, guys, I'm turning the page. Sorry. Yeah.
Good. Man.
One more.
Yeah. Oh, well, 2 studios. There's many great studios, but there's 2 studios where some of my favorite records have been made. One was Van Gelder's place in New Jersey, and the other's Columbia 30th Street Studio. Mm-hmm. And I've always been fascinated by Columbia 30th Street because I can't go to it.
Yes, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite studios was Clinton.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And then right now it's a flat surface. There's nothing there at all, man. There's a fence around it. It's gone. It's been gone about 10 years.
Where is it?
46th Street and 10th Avenue. Right across the street was a pottery shop called Muddy Fingers, and down the street was a old folks home. Yeah. There's 2 great rooms, and I made some wonderful sounding records. It's just the bass was in charge that day.
Wow!
And when you get to record it right, you own that sucker, man. Mm-hmm. I have a record called All Alone. That's what it is. It's all alone, just me. And the bass sounded great that day. And Rudy captured the greatness of the sound of the bass. So all my stereo guys want to check their gear out, get this record. Just to tell you how low it can sound good. It's just a wonderful sounding disc. And Columbia had that same kind of sound. Webster Hall, another one of my dates with Miles records. It was at Gil Evans. It was a great sounding room just because the air didn't inhibit the bass from vibrating to its optimum. Mm-hmm.
But 30th Street wasn't necessarily available to everyone.
No.
Always, right? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a shame. So many good records there.
Yeah. Rudy set the standard, man.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they've been able to get the historical landmarks so that they can't tear it down and put a co-op or a mom and pop store there.
Good. It did get the historic landmark.
Yeah.
It did get that.
Yeah,
right.
good. So they did a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, but they had the wherewithal and never give up openness to get this sucker done. And I applaud them every hour because Rudy's monument, it's necessary to still be standing, man.
Yeah.
It's not this. It's this. Can you imagine these guys just taking the 1-inch master tape and with a razor and cutting it to edit? What kind of skill is that, man? And he didn't miss.
Yeah.
He nailed it each one, man. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Incredible.
Here's Rudy. Wherever you are, Rudy, I take my hat off to you. Because you earned it, man. Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, my
Appreciate
friend.
it. Thank you.
Don, thank you, my friend.
Thanks for checking out Broken Record on YouTube. If you want to listen to us on the go, be sure to subscribe to Broken Record wherever you listen to podcasts.